Hey everyone, want to do a quick video on the new TruFire SEAR hinge release. So this is TruFire's first entry, I believe, into the hinge release type market. They have Levi Morgan on their staff promoting this as being part of the design group that did this one. So I just got this a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and I've used it a little bit. So I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of what the release is and my initial thoughts about it. Now, I'm a bow hunter primarily, so I don't do a lot of tournament shooting, and I've been shooting for about 12 years now, I think, and it's always been with a trigger release. Quite happy with it, but I wanted to try to improve my shooting form a little bit and kind of work out some bugs that I've developed over the years, bad habits and whatnot, and so I wanted to give this one a shot. So let's take a quick look at it, and then I'll give you my thoughts and good and bad about what I've seen so far. So this is the release real quick. I'll show you with my little string, practice string here. You can hear this setting here has a click, and you continue pulling through until release. It's a pretty nice, crisp release. So let's go over some of the features of this release and some of the details about how it works, and just point out a few things. So this is how it comes out of the packaging. You have multiple color options. This comes as standard as a 3-finger configuration, but one of the really cool things about it is that you can adjust it to be a 4-finger configuration. I'm going to try to fast forward this so it doesn't take up too much time. You let that little pin just fall out there. Slide this back in there. This is for 4-finger. There you go. So on the 4-finger setting, you've actually got 2 little set screws, one right here and one that's in here. And you play with those to adjust the angle. Additionally, you've got this little thumb rest knob, and those just screws in place. You've got 3 different positions that you can put it on, and of course you can switch it. This is set up for left hand, or you can put it on the other side for right hand shooting. So very customizable in that sense. One of the key things about this release is the way that they deal with the sears for the release. So if you see here, this little wheel is actually composed of 4 different sear surfaces, right? And they're on this little cog wheel, if you will. So basically, 3 of the sears have clicks, and they go from long, medium to short amount of pull, basically, or rotation before you get to the click, and then of course the release. And the 4th one doesn't have a click at all. This little hook here has a little magnetic kind of assist to help it hold back. One of the interesting things about this is in order to pick the sear, you loosen this little screw here, you remove it rather. It has a little rod that's in this hole that falls out, and then you can loosen this set screw, these set screws. There's one here, another one here. You loosen those and it allows this sear wheel to rotate freely. And so with this little bar out, you can rotate this around to whichever sear position you want, put it back, you line it back up, you can put that little bar through, and that bar just keeps this head from moving, over traveling, and then you have to tighten these set screws back up in order to lock the sear down. So that's one of the key things here, is that you actually have to be careful on where you tighten these down. You're basically tightening those little set screws against the face of one of the unused sears. Now, talk to TruFire, and you can use a little bit of blue Loctite to make sure that those don't back out on you. Another feature of this is it's got hot-cold settings for the release, depending on your preferences. All that means is that the position of these little set screws against this sear wall here determines how far you have to travel before it's going into the click. I recommend that you start with the cold position, which just means that you're trying to set that little set screw on the far edge, on one of the edges of the sear. The further back the sear is in position, the hotter it is. The further forward it is, the sear that you're actually using, the colder it is. But you have a pretty limited window here, to set that set screw to adjust that. That's what that adjustment is. The ergonomics of this are pretty nice, I think. It's got some nice weight to it. I think this is I believe this is brass. It certainly feels heavy like brass. The hook for the string extends well past your knuckle, which is nice. Some people, prefer that versus something that's tucked in really tight. This actually, in terms of draw length, I think married up pretty well or fit pretty well with my trigger release, so I didn't really have to change the draw length. So one of the cool things about this in terms of ergonomics is really around the amount of thought that they put into the thumb position. So as I mentioned before, you can rest your thumb on this bar here, which you can adjust. You can rest your thumb onto the top. I mean, look at that. I swear that my thumb fits just perfectly in that little groove. I mean, it's shaped exactly to the contour of it. Or you can rest your thumb on the very tip of this. So this position with my thumb on the top is actually the most comfortable for me when I'm drawing. Continuing on with the ergonomics, it feels really nice. So each one of these finger grooves here is very smooth. The finish is very smooth. It's nicely beveled all around on all edges. So there's no sharp edges really on any of this here. So after playing with it for a few weeks, I think here's a summary of what I think about it, good and bad, right? So I'll start with the good. It's very customizable. You can switch between 3 finger and 4 fingers, left, right hand, different thumb positions for this bar, the different thumb positions on top. This hot and cold setting is pretty cool. I think it's a pretty clean break on the release. It's got good weight, and it's got this little spot here that you can go ahead and attach a lanyard if you want to. So some of the bad things, or not bad necessarily, but maybe preferences or room for improvements, I think. Again, not being a hinge release shooter primarily, the angle at which I have to hold this when I draw to make sure, basically like this, right, to make sure that it doesn't slip into the release is pretty significant. So there's no safety on this hinge release, which some do. So again, if you mess up and you go through that angle a little quick, that even that click isn't going to save you. It'll go right through and release the arrow. The head on this, to me, is really big. Again, that's just more aesthetics. And by that I mean this red piece here. It's significantly bigger than anything else. A lot of other releases it's just a little hook sticking out. Again, just aesthetics. I don't really like the unused sears sticking out here. So and again, this hasn't really been a problem. What I see is that, if depending on how you like to slip this over the D-loop, you can't just run it down the edge of this into the hook, because you're going to hit the sear. So you have to really pay attention that you're actually engaging the D-loop on the hook itself, and not potentially on one of these extra sears that are in place. On the 4-finger extension configuration, which is what I'm using first, this finger extension feels a little out of place to me, and they're both the same. So this, I believe, is brass. It's got a very nice smooth finish. It feels really nice. This is not. This is, I'm guessing, aluminum. It's got a very nice finish too, and they've beveled it and everything, but you can feel the difference. And so to me, it's a little distracting, I guess, or at least initially. You've got a feel, and then you've got your pinky sitting out there, and it's like, man, that's just different. It's not quite right. And also, because of the way that they designed this, again, for the 4-finger, this transition here, where it goes into this 4-finger extension, depending on what angle you've set it to, this is not a very good transition. So you can feel this little ledge here. This is not, flat angles that are not beveled. Just doesn't feel as nice as the rest of it. So just a little, sure, they're limited by trying to incorporate a design that leaves you flexibility, but maybe something that can be done a little bit better. So again, my primary purpose in using this was really not to switch to a hinge release. It's more to use this hinge release as a training aid, and to improve my performance using my trigger release. And so with that in mind, I think it's going to be great. Am I going to use it for hunting? No, absolutely not. I mean, the one arrow that I launched in practice highlighted the fact that if you're not careful and if you're not really focusing on this, I guess if you shoot it enough, maybe it becomes second nature, but in a hunting situation, you just can't afford that you potentially launch an arrow because you miss, you're just misaligned on the exact angle. And I also think if you have it on the click setting, it's going to be a pretty audible click. If you're bow hunting deer or something, that's not going to be good at 20 yards. Am I going to keep it? Yes, I think I'll keep it. I'll keep using it. For my purposes, that first training session I had using this and getting comfortable with this, actually helped quite a bit. So I switched after shooting about 30 or 40 arrows with this. I switched back to my trigger release shot, and I was shooting significantly better groups because I was starting to improve on some of those bad habits I developed, and so I think it's going to be great for that. So there you have it. This is the TruFire SEAR hinge release. I think pretty good overall. You know, it's got a few shortcomings that I talked about, but I like it overall. I'm not a pro shooter, and so again, for my purposes, this is, I think, pretty good. And I don't think you can really beat it given the price point, especially compared to some of the other top-end hinge and thumb type releases by Stan or Carter, which are also very, very high-quality products. So give it a shot. I don't think you have much to lose. Thanks for watching. If you could, I'd appreciate your subscription to my channel, and also some likes and comments in the sections below. Thanks again.